This question that keeps coming up, and Virgil and I just talked about this in
Yeah.
the context of a Star Trek episode, is what does happen. I mean, part of I think what you're describing with this, with the kind of technological billionaires and
Yeah.
the way our country is, that's where the money is. That's the direction we're moving in.
Mm.
A lot of conversation is going on about people being made redundant by machines and technology,
Mm.
is, to have a serious conversation about what happens consequently to the workforce, the people who aren't a part of that
Mm.
economy. And Andrew Yang, in part, got so much traction as a political candidate in this past election cycle because he was really foregrounding those issues. What's going to happen to all of these truckers when we have self-driving cars, all of these
Mm.
technological innovations that are right on the horizon? And it seems like, an important conversation needs to be had, or we need to start shifting people's consciousness to become comfortable with the idea that there is intrinsic human value and that people should be able to be supported regardless, have a certain standard of life and decency, healthcare, housing, food, etc.,
Yeah.
even if there aren't jobs that exist anymore for them to do because so much labor is being done by machines. And for us to rethink what our contributions are to society, or whether or not people have to make some contribution in order to survive in a new world where we don't have the same need for everyone to labor and
Mm.
toil the same way. And, should we think differently about people's careers, especially as, you pointed out, so many people in my generation and the generation behind me are already so precarious, are already slaves to the gig economy, are
Yeah.
already feeling like it's not an unwillingness to work, but it's truly a lack of opportunity. And the business community seems to understand that they even need to soften their message because of how unbalanced things are. And last year, the Business Roundtable, which is a group representing
Mm.
all of the major business interests in the
Mm.
country, had to acknowledge, okay, we have been saying that the number one goal of corporations
Mm.
of corporate laws to maximize shareholder profit. Even we now have to acknowledge that maybe we should keep some other interests in mind because it seems so callous at a time when we have unprecedented wealth inequality in this country to keep pretending like we're doing some public good by maximizing
Yeah.
shareholder profit. Nobody has shares. Like 7% of the
Mm.
outside of retirement income and 401ks. It's what, like 7% of Americans actually own shares in the stock market. So it's an interesting kind of philosophical moment that we're at. And I think that's part of why Bernie Sanders showing up and saying healthcare is a human right. These, bringing up FDR's freedoms from want, freedom from, the idea that true freedom is really the freedom not to be so constrained by your basic material needs in a way that we've been taught is just part of life or part of capitalism or what our expectations should be. And to have the confidence to say, my life is valuable, my existence is valuable, regardless of whether or not I can get a job stocking shelves. And if one day there's a machine that can stock shelves, that's not the biggest tragedy in the world because it should be perceived as as something that frees us to be something, whatever we want to be, something better, something different
No,
than a cog in a machine.
I deeply agree with you here, and I will tell you why. Because you know what always strikes me as a crazy paradox? In what society do we live where something which, at a very elementary, naive level, should give us hope, should be good news? Machines will be doing the work, so we have to work less. Isn't this
Right.
wonderful? Now, instead of being good news, these are now bad news. No, maybe you should just reorganize society. Some countries are already trying. I don't know how seriously this is taken, but I read somewhere that New Zealand wants to pass on to 4 days working week and so on. I totally agree with you. We should keep this dynamic of economy. And this is maybe a good part of precariousness, that you are forced to reinvent yourself, be creative. But I deeply agree with what you said. Only if this has a kind of a safety network of, we can call it universal basic income, healthcare, universal healthcare, so that you feel safe.
Right.
With this, I can then buy all the precariousness and so on and so on. And I'm not a pessimist here. Don't underestimate ordinary people, because many of friends of mine then tell me, yeah, but people are lazy. If they get too much of a basic income, they will not want to work. No, this is a stupid prejudice. Most of us feel even bored, get aggressive if you don't have a meaningful job. Don't underestimate, I don't overestimate ordinary people. They are evil, aggressive, like we all are. I don't exclude them. But also don't underestimate them. And you know what's the other circle that we should break of this profit making? I forgot his name. There was a British leftist nobleman, but Lauderdale paradox is called, Sir Lauderdale, from around 1800. He went to Paris and supported the Jacobins and so on. And he pointed out how false is our usual market notion of wealth, of getting rich. He says, and it's more than ever true today, imagine a country, small country, whatever, where there is freely enough water and the air is good. But on the market, this doesn't count like wealth. You know, it's there freely available, so it's just there, so the country counts as poor. Now imagine that the water gets polluted. So you need private investors who filter water and sell it. From the purely capitalist standpoint, this means, although for the large majority, it means just an additional expense you pay for water. But from the market standpoint, it means there is more wealth, because capitalists invest, or it's the same with air. Imagine a country with good air. Air gets bad, then you have to filter the air, people have to wear masks, oxygen supply, and so on. This, and a lot of our wealth today, I think, is this type of pseudo-wealth which makes us really poorer. Which is why I highly appreciate him. You know, of course, the economist, Marxist, David Harvey, you know? He says one of the alternatives among left liberals, and I wonder, and I will stop then, don't worry, one of the alternatives among left liberals is to accept the limit of what can be put on the market or not. For example, I understand this. I'm deeply for women's equality when there was a strand of feminism, at least when I was young, where they say women, mothers, are doing effectively free unpaid labor at home. So the idea was, let's commodify it. Every mother should be paid so much and so on and so on. Now, as much as I do appreciate this logic, of course, women are still exploited like crazy and so on. But nonetheless, I don't think this logic of let's commodify, include into the market, also, I would also, this unpaid work is the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution would be less commodification in some sense, not just include anything, include everything on the market, you know. And incidentally, here you can see also where Trump's populism, it's obvious, but another proof is a lie. For example, I listened to a podcast yesterday, I think, with Steve Bannon, for whom the tragedy is the disappearing middle class. And there you see his ultimate horror is that a family is without property. He dreams of returning to that era where, as a worker, you had a constant job, you put a little bit money aside and so on. I don't believe in global modification. I think in the terms that you precisely describe, a basic safety net, and our countries can absolutely afford it, which then leaves the space free if you are ambitious to take all the risks, precariously working here and there and so on and so on. So I think, again, and I think I got your point here, that it's not enough to be against precarious works with this old conservative social democratic argumentation. People want a permanent job where you know even in advance, when I will work 10 years more, I will get 5% more wage or whatever. No, I have nothing against if it's productive. This element of risk precariousness, but don't people see that there must be a universal general safety net? Can I finish with one joke from my book? Don't be afraid, Virgil, it's not an obscene joke, which I like here. Maybe this is the problem with you in the United States, and in Europe are becoming like United States. You know that you have been to Europe, you know the big difference when you enter a building, a high-rise building. In United States, the ground floor is already one. You stand first one, yes, first floor. You enter, no? But in Europe, it's called ground floor, 0. One is you go up, you know. And I think theoretically, we are more right here, at least Europeans, to count, to have competition 1, 2, 3, 4. You need a ground floor. You need this neutral universal base, you know. You cannot begin with one. With different accountancy and so on. Also, and another thing which in a strange way disappointed me, you are, for me, I'm an atheist, don't believe, too obscenely religious. Like, what does it matter if you have trust in God on your dollar notes when, you know, this is a stupid problem, sorry for this joke, but when I enter your hotels, some of I'm in a hotel which has more than 13 floors, no? You know that most of your hotels, almost all where I was, they cheat. 12, and then you jump to 14.
Yes.
But whom are you cheating? As if God doesn't know, or whichever point. 14 is really 13, you know. You need to take maybe this lesson, which even some intelligent conservatives are aware of. You need some kind of a basic system of decency, rules, public safety, and so on and so on, which is a necessary condition, this safety net, for effective competition, for competition which doesn't ruin society. This is why. Virgil told me, and another friend, did you have Virgil, Francis Fukuyama on the show?
No.
Another guy who told me that Fukuyama now supports Bernie.
Really?
That's news.
I will not save my mother into slavery if I am wrong, you know. But I was seriously told this because he is honest enough. He had his moment, the end of history, blah, blah. And now he sees clearly that doesn't function. The Fukuyama dream is over. Bernie sees it, many others sees it. What does it mean? It was easy, no, you're too young even to remember it, in the 90s to make fun of Fukuyama. Oh, no, history goes on, he is wrong. But most of the leftists at that time, they were, I call them Fukuyamaist left, you know. They basically accepted the economic system as it is, like Tony Blair third way, just a little bit more here and there and so on. No, what is happening now is clear. The system as we know it is reaching its limits. Even those in the ruling class know it.